The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
We saw some things at the home that were concerning to us. We believe now, after we processed that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime. We know she didn't just walk out of there. She did not leave on her own. Nancy Guthrie is of great sound mind. This is not a dementia related. She is as sharp as a tack, and we're asking the community's help.
A single black glove found in the massive search for Nancy Guthrie. Could this be the clue that cracks the case? Plus, combing through thousands of tips, how do investigators handle the flood of information that's coming in? And convicted killer Alec Murdaugh back in the spotlight this morning. His fight for a new murder trial lands before South Carolina's highest court. Plus, a closer look at our newest trial. We're calling this one the fatal rejection murder trial. A man is accused of killing a young girl after she rejected him. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court? It's that time where we get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. We have a great show planned, so let's get it started. Grab that cup of coffee or tea or whatever you're having this morning. It's time for my opening statement. It's unprecedented. Nancy Guthrie's case is like nothing we have ever seen. As we're entering the 12th day of searching for Savannah Guthrie's mom, my friends, I'm pausing and I'm thinking about how this arguably may be the biggest kidnapping case of our lifetimes. So much is unusual about this case. The age of the victim, 84 years old. The elderly population are the least likely to be kidnapped. Most kidnappings in the United States happen to those under 21 years of age. Then there's the purported ransom notes sent 3 days after the taking and not sent directly to the family, and demanding a Bitcoin payout without any proof of life. Sure seems like that was some criminal opportunist trying to exploit the Guthrie's tragedy. And then you have this amateur hack of a criminal who clearly has no idea how to be efficient in disabling a camera. I'm thanking God he appears so clumsy and so incompetent. And I pray that that means hope for Nancy Guthrie. You know, my friends, if there is any bit of goodness in this horrific case, it's the unity among Americans who are praying for Nancy Guthrie's safe return. This case has united us in prayer, united us in hope, and united us in realizing that anyone can be the victim of a crime, even well-known celebrities. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, time for your daily docket.
The state has the wrong man. All parents missing. The evidence, the facts, and the lack of information that we have in this case support that conclusion. They support a finding of not guilty in this case.
In New Jersey, closing arguments are resuming in the Mansion murders trial at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The state continues this morning with its close after a nearly 4-hour closing argument from Paul Canera's defense team. In Florida, we've got the fatal rejection murder trial. This is a brand new trial for Waymore Gerhardt. He's the defendant. It resumes today. This guy's accused of murdering 14-year-old Demaya Appling after she rejected him. And we're going to talk more about this case a little later coming up in the show. In Michigan today, we've got the opening statements beginning in the high-profile murder trial for defendant Dale Warner. He's accused of murdering his once missing wife, Dee Warner. Court's going to start up at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Right now, let's turn to your top story. Detectives investigating the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie have uncovered a possible clue, a black glove. The New York Post was the first to report the news. Law enforcement found the clothing item about 1.5 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's home. The black glove found resembles the pair worn, look at this, by the masked intruder caught on video. There you see the gloves that criminal was wearing there. Now, we don't know if this is a match, but we know that the FBI discovered this glove as part of the searching that they're doing, a very extensive search, they called it, of the Catalina foothills, in which agents were seen combing through multiple roadways as well as very thick vegetation. And so, my friends, you can bet your bottom dollar that right now, as we're speaking, there is an analyst in one of the FBI crime labs trying to get a DNA sample from the inside of that glove. And if this hack, who tampered with Nancy Guthrie's cameras, has been in the criminal system before, then we just might have a match. Let's talk about that with our guest analysts. Let's bring in Sonny Slaughter and Mike Alcazar. Good morning to you both. Mike, I'll start with you, please. How much hope should we have with this glove?
I mean, it's a potential lead, right? It's unusual that there'll be a single black surgical glove out there in the desert. Like you said, they need forensic confirmation. So absolutely, it's in the lab right now, and they're seeing if there's any trace evidence in there, any kind of hair, fiber, anything that could link the glove to the crime scene. They're going to compare what they find in that glove to the house, to the sister's house potentially, right? So it's a wealth of information, and it's a good starting point for where they should expand again to recanvass the area for any way that the perpetrator got in and got out.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. Sonny, let me ask you this. Is it an accident that investigators just happened to stumble upon that black glove 1.5 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house?
Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Mike. And it is not. One thing about investigations, and I think Mike will agree, is we think of investigations as a single location. And the way investigative operations work is they are constantly zooming in and zooming out. And by that, I mean, they are always going to go out in the community and look, but they are always going to go back to the closest area of where the crime scene is, because that is where they have the most information. So now they are zooming out, found the glove. It's not unusual, as Mike said. They're going to tie that in to what is at the crime scene, if there's anything at all. And I am hopeful that we will find something, whether it's a DNA fingerprint or not. And remember, even though this person might not be in the system, if there is DNA and somebody that is connected to them has DNA, that could also be a potential link as well.
Sure, Sonny. Yeah, we've seen the genealogical DNA matches. I mean, the Golden State Killer might be the greatest example we've seen that he was cut that way. So even though that guy, he was a police officer, that Joseph D'Angelo, that killer, a police officer, you know, for much of his career, and then was cut through the genealogical. So good point. If it's not CODIS, my friends at home, CODIS is the system in America for criminals, you know, whose DNA has been taken when they get lodged in the system. And so if this hack of a criminal, I'm going to call him amateur hack, that tried to break in to Nancy Guthrie's home and disable those cameras, if this person is a frequent flyer, or at least there once, we could have a match there through CODIS. Speaking of the hack that this guy is, Mike Alcazar, talk to me here. Should we feel encouraged that this guy looks like such a punk amateur? I mean, carrying his firearm right there in the middle of his waistband? That's a whole nother discussion. What do you think? Should this be encouraging that this guy doesn't know what he's doing?
Yeah, we can assume that investigators won't, because, you know, we want to make sure that we cover all our tracks. We're not going to assume that he's a bumbling idiot. We're going to process it like he's a pro. So we're going to look at everything, every evidence that we could process. Again, with this glove, we're going to find out, we're going to definitely expand the grid, right? I don't know where they searched before. We have an idea. But now from that glove, they're going to expand the grid. Remember, they were looking at that manhole behind Nancy's home. Now they're going to look for any kind of like drainage paths in that area where the glove is. I mean, it's going to be huge. They might have to recanvass for like video surveillance that they might not have checked out before because of where the glove was. So the glove being there is the potential for solving this case. They don't have to wait for the DNA. They're going to start. I'm sure they started yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, yeah, they're 10 steps ahead of what the public knows always. Sonny, let me ask you about what this hack is wearing and some of the things carrying on his body. So we got the backpack, we've got the bite light in his mouth to apparently see what he's doing as he's picking up the weeds in the yard to cover up the camera. These things, Sonny, talk to me about what law enforcement is doing to try to trace back, where these items might have been sold or purchased in the area.
So they're going to be looking at the clothing to determine exactly where somebody, like you said, could have purchased this. Like, what type of jacket is this? In fact, one of the followers, Cordy followers, actually messaged me and said, Sonny, my husband said this is a Nike. One of the things was Nike. I think it was either a jacket and I said, okay, that's a good clue. So those are things that people need to call in if they haven't, but that is what law enforcement is doing right now. They're looking at the type of jacket, whether it's new or looks like it's been worn before, and how they can match that up. Look in the area first of where that jacket might say jacket, pants, shoes, and a backpack are sold, and find out all of the people who may have purchased that, when they purchased that, and then go back and try to do investigation that way to determine type, make, purchases. They're doing all of that. They're looking locally. They're reaching out to the makers of items and really trying to narrow it down. When I looked at this video and the person walking, I said, this guy looks like he's about 5'10", 6 feet tall. And so they're going to look at that. They're going to look at the measurement of the feet. I'm looking at maybe 11 and a half with the shoes or something, but they can also take a look at the tiles and then measure it for each step on that way. So there are a lot of clues in this particular video. While the public might not analyze it this way, the public's clues can also be critical. So call in those as opposed to the distractions around these fake ransom notes. We don't need that kind of foolishness.
You're right,
we want
Sonny.
people to call in things that are informative, like, okay, I've seen that jacket, I have it, this is where I purchased it at, and do those things. Don't be a distraction. If you can't help, sit back and be quiet.
Yes, amen. Sonny, perfect segue into our next segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about how thousands of tips are pouring in for the FBI as they continue searching for Nancy Guthrie. So how do they sort through all that information? We'll talk about that. Plus,
no, I did not kill Maggie. I did not kill Paul. I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul, ever, under any circumstances.
this animal, he's back. Convicted killer Alec Murdaugh fighting for a new trial. Going before the South Carolina Supreme Court, we're breaking down the arguments and the likelihood that we'll see his case go again.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Any reference to Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, color blue, ring after 2,200 hours as of yesterday. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues.
The race to find Nancy Guthrie is still trending this morning. The Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI continue following up on all leads. The Sheriff's Department has received nearly 18,000 calls since February 1st, with over 4,000 of those calls coming in just the last 24 hours. On Wednesday, federal agents returned to the area near Nancy Guthrie's home. They fanned out across the neighborhood looking for anything to try to help the investigation to find her and bring her home. Now, the person who was detained relating to the case first spoke to Scripps News Group's KNXV in Phoenix. This after he was released after that detention. Let's take a look.
How did this all start? How did they stop you here? You were driving here?
No,
or
my wife was driving.
Your wife was driving?
Because they were following me.
And once I saw they were following me, I pulled over. They didn't even have to put a traffic stop or anything. I got off the car, and they arrested me as soon as I got out the car. They didn't even tell me what was going on until the detectives got here, like 2 hours before I got arrested. And then the detectives got here. It was the FBI agent in Santa Cruz County, and they told me I was being detained for kidnapping. And I asked them, like, well, kidnapping of who? And they told me this lady, I don't know her name. And
Nancy Guthrie?
Yeah, that's her. And I told them I work in Tucson for GLS. I might have delivered a package to your house, but I never kidnapped anybody. They hold me from like 4 to right now.
So it was about 4 o'clock, and they're holding you to right now. So after midnight. Did they tell you anything? I mean, you're in the back of the truck.
They didn't tell me anything until right now. Like I said, like the beginning, they answered they wanted me to answer their questions, like where I was, what hours, and all that. And I answered the questions. And right now, all they told me is that I'm free to go.
Had you heard of Nancy Guthrie before tonight?
Never until today.
Never until today.
Yeah.
So
I didn't. They told me I watched the news and I Googled her number or her name, and I prove it to me. And they couldn't prove it to me. Like, they didn't have no, it was insufficient evidence. Like, they only had a phone on me. That's all they had. And supposedly I was at her house. But like I said, I work delivering packages for GLS. I might have delivered a package to her house.
But didn't kidnap anybody?
No.
So what's going through your head when they're telling you kidnapped somebody?
Bro, I'm facing life. I'm gonna lose everything.
And so they have all this. They detain you. You're here for hours, and what did they just tell you?
That I'm free to go.
Free to go. You hadn't followed this news. This is big, major news. It's Nancy Guthrie, who's her daughter is Savannah Guthrie, who hosts the Today Show on NBC. So it's been big news. She's been missing for more than a week. So they have put out, the Pima County Sheriff's Department put out that they had detained a person of interest. And I guess that's you?
I guess so. I'm innocent. I'll let you know that. I'll tell you that. I didn't do anything. Like I said, I didn't even know what was going on until the FBI and the Pima County detective arrived, and they told me, well, you're being detained for kidnapping, and all of a sudden they read me my Miranda rights. Now you're being under arrest. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
And now free to go.
Yeah, now I'm free to go.
Now, there are no persons of interest yet. The clock is ticking. So what's the next move for investigators? Where exactly does the search go from here? Let's bring back in Sonny Slaughter and Mike Alcazar. And I want to welcome in trial attorney John Phillips. Good morning to you all. Sonny, I'll start with you. Picking up where we left off, you raised the point in our last segment about how we don't need foolish, bogus tips coming in. So backing up a bit, looking back at these ransom demands, these purported ransom letters, alleging to have Nancy Guthrie and demanding all that money in Bitcoin. Sonny, is it safe to say now that that was bogus and some kind of ruse?
I do believe they all have been bogus, but unfortunately, law enforcement still has to investigate them. They still have to rule that out, which means those distractions then become something that deters from actual investigations. I also want to say that during this time when they are going through all of these tips, that I want to commend the sworn and civilian workers of law enforcement who are having to analyze each and every call, each and every assessment. They are having to go through each one. They can't just say, oh, well, this doesn't sound good. They actually have to investigate that. So we don't need people distracting law enforcement from finding Nancy Guthrie. We need people to knock that off and get down to the business of supporting law enforcement and providing good information. And the tips are not credible, in my professional opinion. I do not believe that any of the ransom notes are valid because there's a $50,000 reward currently being provided by the FBI. And if someone was serious about this, that's an option.
Right, exactly, Sonny. Detective Alcazar, you've worked a lot of cases in your years. How are you feeling this morning about what we're looking at? What is it you think we're looking at here? Is this a kidnapping case? Is this a homicide case? Is this something else? What are your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, I kind of like bounced from different theories. Initially, like everybody else, I thought it was perhaps like a targeted abduction. And then I bounced the idea of like maybe it was a burglary gone bad. And now that we see that this perpetrator is probably not as professional as people thought, I'm thinking now that this might have been a situation that became violent, and then this person thought that he'd have to do something. So I feel like it's almost like a robbery burglary gone bad, and then he took Nancy. So they have to entertain all avenues of that. But he seems to be working solo. It doesn't seem very prepared. Like, I don't know if somebody was waiting to assist him. So it doesn't seem as carefully planned as I initially thought, and I think as everyone else thought.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I'm looking at him, and I am stuck on that backpack and how full it is. Because like you, Detective, I've gone back and forth in my head. What was this? Was it intended to be a burglary? And then we heard nothing was taken. And then seeing this in that backpack that appears to be full, it looks kind of heavy on his back. I'm thinking, well, what room did he have on his back to take anything out of that house? John Phillips, would you weigh in on these theories? What might have happened? Tell us where your head is this morning in terms of what you think might have happened to Nancy Guthrie.
Before I get to my head, let me briefly address my heart. And my heart goes out with the Guthrie family. Look, this world is particularly small, and I've been on set with Savannah before, and I don't call her, a great friend or anything, but just because you see somebody on TV doesn't mean they don't have real pain. Like what they're going through in the videos, and then in this world you got to say, okay, is this an AI video? Is this real? Like even processing information is difficult. But going back to the tips, folks, when we were in the throes of Joe Exotic and who killed Don Lewis and all that, we put our tip line 1-800-LITIGATE out there, and you wouldn't believe the prank calls, like just kids having fun, things that were just so far-fetched, but we went through every single one of them. It's documented in season 2 of Tiger King, and it was preposterous. And so, the fact is we're all sitting here saying, well, be serious, but there's people that just don't care, and they're gonna turn any particular news item into their feast of the day, and it's sad. But I'm with you. I don't know what this is. I've been burglarized. Burglars don't carry a full backpack. They need that stuff to go. And so in the way that it's amateurish, it seems like there's a degree of separation to the family or something, something close here. I don't think this doesn't seem like a stranger, right? So that's kind of what's going through the head and heart this morning.
Right. I agree with you, John. It seems like somebody with some kind of knowledge in her world. Sonny, I saw you nodding along as John was speaking. Your thoughts, please.
I'll be quick. This is familiar and familial. And it doesn't mean that it is a family member. It could be someone on the peripheral, but I do not think this is a stranger. I think this is someone familiar, someone connected to the family in some form or fashion, and this is personal. I do not think this is about money.
Mm-hmm. Is it about torturing the Guthrie family? Is it about that? Is it just about taking their mother and torturing them? Detective Alcazar, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I've heard that. It's definitely a possibility. I agree with Sonny that, when there's rumors spreading, there's probably a grain of truth in there. So that's why we're seeing them revisit different locations and process the crime scene again. So they'll look through, again, what we call victimology. They're going to look at any kind of like electronic history for Savannah, for Nancy, for the brother, the sister, any kind of threats or disputes in the past, again, to examine to see if this is something personal, right? Any kind of financial difficulties. This is what investigators are going through now. We're not ruling anything out, and we're investigating everything.
Yes, Mike Alcazar, Sonny Slaughter, thank you both so much. John Phillips is coming with us. Do the same at home, please. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements.
The defendant will rise. Madam Clerk, you may publish the verdict.
The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Guilty, verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty.
He was found guilty, but will he get a new trial? That's the hope for the Alec Murdaugh defense team. We'll talk about the case and the arguments next. Plus, we're taking you to Florida this morning. A brand new trial. A man is accused of murdering a 14-year-old after she rejected his advances.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back. In our spotlight this morning, Alec Murdaugh, his attorneys, all at the South Carolina Supreme Court pushing for a new trial. But even his own attorneys admit, quote, nobody wants to do this again. Much of this is centered around court clerk Becky Hill. The appeal is arguing that jurors heard improper evidence and accused the former clerk of court of improperly influencing the jury by pressuring them to reach a guilty verdict, therefore impeding the right to a fair trial.
Rhonda McElveen, who's the Barnwell clerk of court, was asked by Becky Hill, the Colleton clerk of court, to assist her during the Murdaugh trial. She testified under oath that she was told by Ms. Hill that she, being Ms. Hill, might write a book because she needed a lake house. A guilty verdict would sell more books. That was said before December of 22. We didn't pick a jury until January of 23. The best way to sell books was a guilty verdict. A guilty verdict would be better for the sale of books. She explained she had a financial incentive for a guilty verdict. She also made comments to her like, don't be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's lawyer. Watch him closely. Just before he testifies, look at his actions, look at his movements. Identical to the statements that I'm going to read you in just a moment by the jurors as they were questioned.
Now, Becky Hill initially denied those claims, but later pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice and perjury. That was back in December of 2025. She was sentenced to probation rather than prison time and resigned from her position. Now, the justices did not offer any expected time frame for their ruling. Convicted killer Alex Murdaugh continues to try to maintain his innocence, even though he's been convicted. You ask him, he'll tell you he didn't do it. I spoke to his attorney, Dick Harpootlian, not long ago, and he has said the same. He's maintaining his innocence, and they want this new trial. Question is, will they get the new trial? Let's bring in someone now who's followed this case very closely, represented some of the victims who've been victimized by Alec Murdaugh. Attorney Eric Bland. Eric, good morning to you. Give us your assessment, please, listening to the arguments on both sides. Whose side do you think has the stronger legal argument here?
Well, if you listen to the Supreme Court justices, and I think it was all five of them, I think the defense, the appellant, Alex Murdaugh, resonated more with them than the arguments from the state. It was shocking to a lot of us in the bar because we always knew that the issue of Becky Hill and juror tampering invokes the Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial, and we thought that they would grab onto that, but they were equally strong in questioning Creighton Wooders in the state on the evidentiary introductions by Judge Newman. They were critical of Judge Newman, not only on the issues of the financial crimes, but on all aspects of the phone evidence, of the throwing of the phone, as well as the ballistic expert who testified to the bullets coming from, the bullet casings coming from certain guns, and almost said that it was, not objective and type of science that experts would follow. It was shocking, and I didn't think he would get a new trial on the state level. I always thought that on the federal level, he'd have a more receptive ear. I didn't think our state Supreme Court would criticize a former Chief Justice, but they certainly did, and Becky Hill played a big role in that.
She sure did, Eric. Let's take a look back at her in court statement after pleading guilty.
There is no excuse for my mistakes. I am ashamed of them, and I will carry that shame with me for the rest of my life. I have already begun the hard work of rebuilding relationships that I damaged by accepting responsibility, by seeking forgiveness from those that I love, and by repaying any improper bonus I received. I am committed to making amends.
Oh, Eric, you know, just listening to her, looking at her makes me mad, because this was a tough case to prove, as you know. Those prosecutors, I can't imagine how many hours of sleep they lost in doing this case. I remember talking to Creighton Waters about it when we did a panel at CrimeCon on it. I mean, he spent countless hours trying this case, and the case was proven. Alec Murdaugh was proven to have murdered his wife, Maggie, proven to have murdered his son, Paul. And now all that work might be for nothing because of someone inserting themselves in this process to get their 15 minutes of fame. Eric, it's nauseating for me. I'm sure it is for you.
The Chief Justice said that he presides over all clerks of court and other officers of the court, as well as the bailiffs, and that the public trust has been eroded, even though Becky didn't plead guilty to things that had to do with the jury verdict. She was a prominent part of this trial. She was always on camera. She talked during the breaks in the court. And I think that the Chief Justice was mortally offended by what she did, and did that have an effect on the jurors? The other thing was, I think they latched on to Chief Justice Toll saying that when she made her decision not to grant a new trial, she said, I find Becky Hill not to be entirely credible. Well, the Associate Chief Justice, John Few, said, well, that means she lied during her testimony, doesn't it? And Creighton had to concede on that. It was really a difficult day for those of us that believe that Alex Murdaugh is guilty, that there was plenty of circumstantial murder evidence. In addition, we believe that the financial crimes were a motive for him and that there was that gathering storm. But at the end of the day, that's what the work that I did, my partner Ronnie Richter did, Mark Tinsley and Justin Bamberg, to get him convicted of those financial crimes. Because, Julie, he's never going to get a fresh breath of air. He's doing 27 years in state prison, and consecutively, when he gets out, he has to do 40 more in federal prison. So even if this case is retried, it may be a hung jury. I think he's going to be convicted even on a retrial. But there is a possibility, though, that the Supreme Court could send it back to Justice Toll to do a Remmer standard instead of the State v. Green standard. The Remmer standard, remember, for getting a new trial for juror interference is all you have to show is the interference with the jury. Justice Toll said she didn't find interference. I think the Supreme Court did. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think there is a high probability that he will get a new trial because you have to listen to the oral arguments. They took Creighton much harder over the coals than they did Phil Barber, Dick Harpootlian, or Jim Griffin. Mm-hmm. And I also think it was a mistake, Julie, for Creighton to do both arguments on the appeal because he's trying to preserve his jury verdict. And oftentimes trial lawyers don't do the appeal because they're trying too hard to keep what they earned. You understand?
Right. Oh, very much so. Very much. It's unusual. It's very unusual. Typically, someone else who strictly does appeals would handle the appellate work on behalf of the Attorney General's office there. And I'm sure it does feel personal for him in the sense that there's an attachment to your cases when you're fighting for justice. When you're a prosecutor, you're fighting for victims, you're fighting the good fight, so to speak. And so I'm sure it's tough to let it go and put it in someone else's hands. Perhaps that's why we saw him, as you mentioned, Eric. It's been a remarkable case for so many reasons, and this is just one more. And really, I think at the end of the day, and you understand this, Eric, the Sixth Amendment, as you said, the right to a fair trial for a defendant is paramount over everything in a criminal case. And so even though there's a mountain of evidence substantiating that this guy did this, if he was deprived of that right that belongs to him legally as an American citizen, then it stands to reason that he should get a new trial. So we'll see if the justices find that deprivation. Yes, go ahead, Eric, quickly.
Julie, the reason we have the best system in the world is because it works for the worst of us, not just the best of us.
Yep.
The worst have to get the same that the best of us get. And that's why we have the best judicial system in the world.
Yeah, it's so true. He is owed that right. And if they find he was deprived of it, we'll be covering the trial. Eric Bland, always great to have your insights. Thank you. Still to come here on opening statements, we're taking you to Florida for the fatal rejection murder trial.
Maybe her last words that she ever spoke in her phone by text were that she was with you. And she was scared of you and didn't want to be with you. And maybe that's why you decided to do what you do, because you couldn't have her, but you wanted her. And she wouldn't give you the time of day.
I don't want her at all. I have no friend.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Welcome back. Let's turn now to Florida and find out what's tipping the scales of justice. This is in our next big trial. It's called the fatal rejection murder trial. Defendant Waymore Gerhardt is accused of killing 14-year-old Demaya Appling after she allegedly refused his sexual advances. Prosecutors say the then 19-year-old lured Appling over to his home under the guise that her friend Keith Anderson would be there. Let's get the full story from Court TV's Matt Johnson.
I raised 3 kids here, never had a problem. I didn't know there was monsters moved in.
Deborah Appling is Demaya Appling's grandmother. She reported Demaya missing in October 2022. Her body found in December that year. Investigators ruled her death a homicide. Demaya was just 14 years old.
They came to my house, I think it was December 5th. They said they found a body. And then I was like, God. And then on the 16th, they came back and said it was her.
Waymore Gerhardt is accused of shooting and killing Demaya. He's charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Investigators say Demaya went to Gerhardt's home expecting to meet another boy. Reports suggest Demaya felt uncomfortable around and had rejected Gerhardt's advances.
She don't get no more birthdays. He does. I don't want him to kill him, but I don't ever want him to see the outside of daylight again.
Deborah has waited more than 3 years for justice.
I don't feel like waiting again because it's been long. This wait has been long enough. She was my world. She's the reason I keep going. And that's why I keep going now, because of her.
Oh, so heartbreaking. Demaya Appling, a beautiful young girl, taken in such a cruel way. The allegation is she's lured under false pretenses, allegedly by a predator, wants to have sex with her, and when she rejects him, she gets shot. That is chilling. Let's bring in our guest legal analyst, high-profile attorney John Phillips is with me. John, good morning to you. Your thoughts on the facts as we know them, as alleged by the state of Florida, please.
It's super horrible. So let's give some context. This is Old Town Dixie County, Florida. It's a little community, not a little community, but a community right there on the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it. But it is still lost in time in Florida. Last time I was in that courthouse, I saw a rebel flag before I walked in, and it's just this lost little town with people that are still kind of a little different. And so you've got this 14-year-old and this 19-year-old, and now the 19-year-old is going to throw the 14-year-old and under all sorts of buses and claim the blood in his car was a squirrel, not her. And you've just got this very compelling case that ultimately is a guy claiming he didn't start the fire, it was always burning, but yet had every reason to murder her, and I believe did.
Mm-hmm. John, yeah, I like what you said there. I love anytime you can drop a Billy Joel lyric into this show. I appreciate it. So let's take a look at the luring and how that allegedly occurred. So from what we understand, Waymore Gerhardt has a nephew who took a plea after he got leaned on to talk, and he did talk. Let's take a listen.
Why is your uncle asking for you to get the little 14-year-old girl that you're good friends with, to hang out with, to come over and hang out with him?
For sex.
Right. Has he talked to you about her before, like finding her attractive?
Yes, sir, but I never thought that he would do something like that to her.
Okay, John, do you think we can trust the testimony of the nephew, or is he just saving himself here?
I mean, I would take every single witness with a grain of salt here. They were all involved with kind of the recruitment of a 14-year-old girl for sex, which led to murder. That said, you've got to find, the most consistent story. And again, that's why I started with talking about Old Town, right? You got a guy that's the same age that's calling him uncle, like it's a very different world here. And you're going to have jurors that are both from that side of the tracks and ocean or Gulf front, right? And it's going to be this dichotomy as we try this case, or they try this case. I'm not affiliated with it, and I think there's going to be enough consistency in the prosecutor's case that's only going to point back to Waymore. And that he's the one that did this. And so, again, the defense attorneys are saying the whole time, don't trust anything. Everything's half true. Stories have changed 3 times. But meanwhile, Waymore's story has been way more lies than everybody else.
Yeah, let's hear some more from Mr. Waymore Gerhardt. Let's take a listen to what he told police when he was interviewed.
Why did you take her that night? Because you wanted her and she didn't want you, so you were going to prove a point to her, and you were going to take her and do whatever you wanted with her, and she was going to comply. It's not something disgusting when you're having sex with a 14-year-old. That's not something disgusting.
You're accusing me of doing something to her. That's disgusting.
Having sex with her is bad enough.
Would you rather me be honest?
I want to know why she was in your car.
John Phillips, what'd you think of that little exchange?
Hey, again, and there's another one where he was like, "Oh, I have a girlfriend," which is just so 16-year-old speak, but you're deflecting, which is kind of the first category of how to spot a liar, right? This is disgusting. No, like I have a girlfriend. I got all this world going for me. That, trust me and my nephew, who are the same age, didn't lure this vulnerable 14-year-old to our house, right? You just, again, he's not credible.
John Phillips, I really appreciate your insights always. Thank you so much. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.